it's the worst of both worlds because, if we, on the one hand, legalized it, we could regulate it. We could make sure that it's not being provided to children. We could treat it like some substances that are, regulated and made sure that they're not containing other substances. We could tax it, those types of things. If it remains criminal, we can also continue to provide services for people who have addiction, who have problems. We can also prevent people from having...
There's no evidence that I've ever seen, empirical or otherwise, that indicates that anyone is addicted to marijuana. You can be addicted to heroin. You can be addicted to crack cocaine. You can have a psychological dependence at best on marijuana. And I don't think anyone, you or I sitting here, are going to represent to the public that the court system is providing in the process of providing any kind of meaningful intervention and treatment to people who are brought before the courts for possession of marijuana. It simply doesn't happen.
Well, I would tend to disagree. I mean, I've been in the courts when we have had people who have had long-term issues, who have gone into programs that help deal with addictions. And I disagree also that marijuana cannot be addictive. I think there are studies that most say that it's more psychologically addictive, but it is addictive. And also, we're talking about a strength of marijuana now that is much higher than it was 20, 30 years ago. When people were talking about marijuana in the 1960s or even in the 70s, the THC level was very low. And we're also talking about a substance that is more carcinogenic than cigarettes. We're talking about a substance that two marijuana cigarettes are the equivalent of a pack of cigarettes in terms of the damage it does to your lungs.
Research, Dave. I think that's being disingenuous. I don't think that research exists that attests to anything that's smoked that's more lethal than cigarettes. And cigarettes, by the way, ironically, are legal.
That's right, but they're also highly regulated. So again, this is the worst of both worlds because what you're having is who knows what being put in that bag of marijuana, provided to children, provided to other people who are going to be smoking, and they don't know what they're smoking.
I don't think that we're advocating children smoking marijuana. I think that that's kind of a red herring that's thrown in by opponents of the measure to let us think that while it's okay for an 8-year-old to fire an Uzi submachine gun, that we're going to be giving 8-year-olds bags of weed. That's simply not going to happen. What this law will do is provide an opportunity for a young person, and if we legalize it, we're sanctioning it. We're saying this is okay to use. We're simply decriminalizing it. And I'm going to suggest that it's unwise to use it and it's imprudent to use it. And I tell this to my kids. I have 2 college-age children who are students here at BU, and I told them when I came out on this side of this issue that in no way do I condone the use of marijuana. I think it's unwise for people to use it, particularly habitually. I think it's imprudent, but we have to recognize that the people who make unwise choices are not necessarily criminals.
I agree, and that's why we have this opt-out situation where people don't have a criminal record. And by the way, when I talked about...
You get one shot at that, too, by the way. You get one chance.
On paper, that is true. But in the real world, when you're talking about what happens every day in the district courts of Massachusetts, oftentimes you see as a first offense, first of all, the police often don't make arrests. Secondly, when they're finally brought into court on a possession of marijuana case, which is very rare when that's the only charge, it's often dismissed with court costs or pretrial probation, where the case is...
this inconsistency, are we even prosecuting these people at all? Over 7,500 brand new possession alone Corey records are created every year in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. 7,500 people are charged with possession of marijuana and given a criminal record for life.
Well, let me say, first of all, I'm not speaking for any other organization, but I will tell you that the Massachusetts District Attorneys Association disputes those figures, and that, in fact, if you look at Suffolk County and Middlesex County, which are the 2 largest populated counties in the state, not a single person in 2007 went to jail for these type of offenses. And in almost all of these circumstances where we have these charges, it's because they are charged with something else. Like
what about the simple possession offenses, Dave? I mean, when you were a prosecutor and the cops brought these kinds of cases into you, I mean, they're wasting your valuable time. You have more important things to do than to prosecute people for simple possession of a little bit of pot. You've got people committing crimes of violence. You've got people committing serious property crime, and it's a waste of prosecutorial resources to prosecute people for simple possession of marijuana.
And I've heard that exact same argument for simple shoplifting, and I've heard that argument for simple possession of minor possession of alcohol. When a defendant commits a crime, oftentimes you have the discretion of the police officer on the street as to whether to make that charge. And usually when we saw these simple possession of marijuana cases, which, by the way, was very rare that was the only charge, it was usually someone who was known to the police officer, and this was the third, fourth time where they finally said, you know what, I'm done giving you a break. Or it was someone who had something else that was going along with the case, that they were disorderly or... Go ahead.
You may see occasions where the enforcement effort is actually stepped up when the officer has this tool at his or her disposal. I can give you a $100 fine. I may not want to attach a Corey record to you. I may not want to give you a court case, but I certainly think that a sanction of $100 is something that I'd consider appropriate, rather than locking you up, bringing you into a police station, having you booked and processed, taken up to court, and the arraignment process. It's just a waste of resources.